You should be getting your strategic form to kind of change who you are from the inside out. And that's where we started at that premise and where the brand DNA came from. It was like, if your brand is this desired territory in the minds and the hearts of your most valued customers, and if you can articulate that in a way that is relevant and compelling and distinctive and above all credible, why would you not want to use that form to kind of direct everything that your organization says and does?
Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen. I'm your host. Today I've got a very special guest, Peter Wilken, who is widely known as the father of brand DNA. He's a global strategist, former head of BBDO Asia Pacific, and the creator of the 4Ds brand-centered management approach. Peter is also the author of Dim Sum Strategy and founder of the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, where he helps businesses unlock the true power of their brand. Welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Thank you so much, Arlen. Great pleasure to be here. And I hope that can be of some value to your listeners.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to talk to you, and thank you for coming on and joining us. Really excited to really dive deep. I think we're going to really kind of focus today's conversation on this particular approach that you've trademarked, the 4Ds brand-centered management approach. And I'm really excited to really kind of dive into that. But before I do dive into that, I'm really just curious about your backstory, how you got here how you got to where you are today, and actually how did you get that catchphrase coined as the father of brand DNA? So if you can give us a quick backstory, I'd appreciate it.
I know. Well, that kind of label has kind of stuck a little bit, and it was one of my publishers who kind of phrased it and said, "Hey, actually, you're that guy," and I'll tell you the story of how it was. And I kind of modestly think, well, can anyone really claim to be that? It's a term that's so widely used now. But in fact, I co-authored that with my founding partners at the brand company over 25 years ago. And believe me, people were not using the phrase brand DNA at all widely then, or the DNA. And I'll talk you through that, at the heart of which was the why, which Simon Sinek has brilliantly marketed and done extraordinarily well, better than we ever did. But to rewind a little bit and say back, you asked where my backstory was. On the kind of commercial side, are you familiar with Mad Men, that Netflix series?
I am. I never really got into it. I had a good friend of mine that was heavily invested into it. I may have watched a couple of episodes. Right, well,
but some of your listeners may or may not know it, but it's that kind of series set in the 1950s and 60s of that golden era of advertising, that twilight zone. And that's where I kind of started my career, at the end of that twilight zone. It was like 20 years on then, but in the early 80s, I started in the advertising career. And when people who know me, they say, "Oh my God, you're a madman." And that's exactly what it was. I ended up with my last corporate role in running BBDO Asia Pacific out of Hong Kong. So I looked after their 14 markets. And before that, I'd had 5 years running Leo Burnett, Southeast Asia operation out of Malaysia, and 11 years with Ogilvy, running offices in places like the Philippines and elsewhere. So the beauty of the advertising world, it was like it gave you a smorgasbord of different cultures and clients. You worked with 30 or 40 different clients. If you were an account person, maybe only 4 or 5 you got to know deeply, but over a 30 plus year career, You get to see a completely different variety of brands and categories and cultures, and every day was a different day. After that, I left that to form my own company in Hong Kong called the Brand Company, with a couple of partners, the Young Hong Kong Entrepreneur of the Year, and the guy who was the top marketing guy for Li Ka-sheng's telco operation then. And what we had recognized was that millions and millions and millions of dollars were being spent on what we called the superficial packaging of brands. That is your logo, your visual, your design identity, and yes, to a certain extent, the advertising communications that I've been spending my last 25 years doing, but not on the substance of the experience that your product or service actually delivers, which actually defines more how people think about your brand. And what we also all recognized was that there were many strategic tools out there, but they were all geared towards the superficial side, not the substance side. And don't get me wrong, design and visual identity and communications are hugely important, but normally it's done the wrong way round. Clients spend their money to say, look at me, how great I am. Here's my new clothes, but without changing the substance of the soul or who they are and what they're delivering. That's the wrong way round. We said, no, you should be getting your strategic form to kind of change who you are from the inside out. And that's where we started at that premise and where the brand DNA came from. It was like, if your brand is this desired territory in the minds and the hearts of your most valued customers, and if you can articulate that in a way that is relevant and compelling and distinctive and above all credible, why would you not want to use that form to kind of direct everything that your organization says and does? Right from corporate strategy to your internal communications, walking the talk, to your systems and structures that enable or hinder you from delivering your key promise, to the actual products and services that do the talking for themselves or should do, to the external communications that try and guide perceptions, to the actual perceptions of your customers or your stakeholders that should reflect what you're trying to kind of create with them. And so we created this approach and this philosophy called brand-centered management, putting your brand at the center of how you manage your business. And at the heart of that was your brand DNA. And, like its genetic counterpart, it's a template for replicating consistent desired perceptions and experiences of your brand. And it had, and it still has, 4 or 5 key components, the role, why you exist beyond making money to serve your clients. And again, why being the big thing. This was, years before that was out. What are your core beliefs? What are the things that you would die in a ditch for? And not just the kind of generic hygiene factors like, integrity and truth and excellence of quality and great company to work with. And everyone says that. Cost of entry, if you're not doing that, should I be doing business with you if you're not honest? It's like, come on, guys, absolutely, we can do better. Absolutely. So it's going deeper. And the heart of your DNA was your promise, your overarching commitment that you make to your stakeholders, backed up with the benefit that they get from you delivering against that promise. So you have to understand exactly who it is you're targeting and talking to. So we had a mechanism of, narrowing down your target audience, as we call it, practical segmentation, into the 3 or 5 key targets that even big companies can't target more than 3 or 4 target groups well, otherwise they lose their identity.
For sure.
So, and then it was all kind of wrapped up in what we call the spirit or culture, how you go about doing it. And that's typically how, in crowded categories where many products and services are the same, the way in which you deliver it is very, very different. Are you authoritative, German, Teutonic, efficient, delivered, or are you kind of soft smoke and deep Southern style, all peaches and honey? And very, very different. And again, I don't mean to be patronizing or cliche in what I'm saying there, but you get the idea. And then the last component was your icons and your attributes that instantly kind of create an image of your whole dynamic. We also have, increasingly kind of talks around, what's your core creative idea? How do you bring it to life? What's your rallying cry that brings everyone together? Your motto, if you like. So that's your brand DNA, and you craft that in a unique way the 4Ds process is discovery, definition, which is defining your brand DNA, which serves like a compass or a lighthouse. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then your direction is your strategic direction that it informs the choices that you're going to make, 3 or 4 big things you're going to do. And delivery is accelerating delivery of those perceptions and experiences. So that become the 4Ds. And, without really even pushing it, it's been embraced by, thousands and thousands of brand professionals now and brands around the world. So it's kind of flattering. And that's a very, very long answer to your original question of where did the father of brand DNA come from? So,
right. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Yeah. It's, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for giving us the backstory. And yeah, it looks like from what you've said, yes, you were coming up in a time as far as the marketing world is concerned, where, like you said, you were at the tail end of that kind of Mad Men era, as you spoke of, and you were in the beginning of kind of witnessing everything shifting. When we're getting at the end of the 80s and the early 90s to the digital era. So you've really covered a wide spectrum of this whole marketing world. I'm curious about, from what you've seen in your point of view, as far as these core fundamentals when it comes to marketing, is it still the same? What has changed between then and now when we're talking reaching customers digitally and creating the relationship?
Great question, Arlen. And where I was going to go with all of this is, I was still running agencies when the digital era was starting, and we were definitely getting into this. And so that transition was already there. And to be honest, the principles of what makes great brands and stands them apart hasn't changed at all. The medium of delivery has. So you've got a complete industry now of traditional old school advertising, print, posters, press, television, whatever it was, is it called? New digital media. And, I don't know why people call themselves digital agencies anymore, because it's kind of like the norm. The principle of building great brands, having a strong, differentiated, relevant, compelling proposition don't change at all. The medium of delivery does. So if you take this to a logical extreme now, there are so many digital platforms that we're working on. If you're just talking social media alone, each one has got its own distinct characteristic, almost like a magazine has. TikTok if you're into entertainment, Snapchat if you're younger, LinkedIn supposedly on the work side, Substack now for independent kind of voices. Instagram and the Meta group and Facebook in a different way. Each has got its own complexion, but it's just a medium for delivery. Having said that, there are new norms set and new kind of standards which people accept as the norm. And I may say a few things controversial which might upset people, and hopefully I don't. But honestly, I'm an old guy, and old guy, but I've seen a lot. And when you've been around the circle, you see the same ideas repeated in different things. And
for sure,
what do I like about what the digital era has given? It's democratized accessibility in an incredible way. You can. If you're an artist or musician or something like this, your barriers to entry and your cost of entry are like so low, you can get your stuff out there. Whether or not it's more difficult than ever to get noticed because of the morass and the clutter out there is the debate. And there's always a give and take. When you've got that, what you've taken away is the ability to differentiate high caliber and quality and competence, because there's so much litter out there of averaging to the norm, for example. So in our world of advertising, I had this conversation with the wonderful podcaster Terry O'Reilly here the other day, and we were sounded hopefully not too much like two old guys saying, oh, well, they'll go back to the old times, how great it was and how bad it is now. I'm not like that. A lot of what we've got is wonderful and brilliant. But with the onset of generative AI, the ability to churn out stuff, particularly, other things, other people's work that is out there, and take appropriation for it and average to the norm. Everything is getting flooded, with these not just hose pipes, but huge concrete tunnels. So just chucking this sludge out into the ocean. It's very difficult to stand out, and it's very difficult to tell and differentiate who really has got the skill and the experience and the confidence, and who hasn't, who's just good at raising their social media profile. Yeah. Anyway, we were talking about the general quality of advertising. And, when I started in the early 80s, I would say at least 75% of the ads out there in the world were crap, if I can say that on here. I mean, rubbish, insulting to the intelligence, boring, slap your head around with a hammer, trying to, talking heads spewing information at you that wasn't entertaining and educational, enlightening, or engaging in any way. At least 75%. I reckon that quotient has gone up to about 95% today. And I think the caliber of most of the advertising in the digital world is very, very poor. Very samey, very difficult to stand apart. There are always notable exceptions, and some people still doing really good things. But the principles of great advertising, get noticed, be relevant, interest people into your product. You can't bore people into it and everything. All of those principles, they haven't changed. Yeah. It's just the e-commerce and the digital platform is a different type of medium in which to deliver it.
Hey, before we jump into the next question, I want to take a quick second to talk about something that's been a game changer for so many business owners, including myself. That's public speaking. If you're running an e-commerce brand, marketing agency, or any business, your ability to communicate clearly and confidently can really make all the difference. Whether you're pitching to investors, speaking at conferences, or even just creating content that connects with your audience. That's exactly why I created speaktoempower.com, a coaching program designed to help you master public speaking without fear. You can start with my free 10-day course where I walk through essential strategies to overcome nervousness, engage in the audience, and speak with confidence. And if you want to go even deeper, I offer weekly virtual group coaching sessions and one-on-one coaching tailored to your needs. So if you've ever felt like you could be more confident on camera, on stage, or even in day-to-day business conversations, head over to speaktoempower.com and get started for free today. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, the way I see it, it's like you said, it's the barrier to entry is a lot less. Anyone can get out there and then be able to reach billions and thousands of, thousands and millions of people. But it's just because of that, then you have everyone doing it. And then, of course, it's so easy. So a lot of people don't put a lot of thought into what they're putting out there and how they're attracting customers. So like you said, that's why it's hard to really, kind of swim through all of the mess and then differentiate yourself from everyone else. So it's, I love all of these changes. I've been around for a while as far as our business is concerned, the business that I have, which is affiliate software solution. But we've seen the changes as well. And I think like you said, the principles are really the same. There's been a lot of talk about branding, and then how do you tie in your personal brand into your actual brand for your business. I think that's, one of the debates that I know I've had before, and I know a lot of other business owners have, because there's been so much attention on, that personal brand. How does a business owner, a founder, successfully wrap his personal brand around that company brand? Is it, or are they one and the same? I guess that's my question.
It's a great question, Arlen. And, I don't have all the right answers, but I've got points of view on that. The thinking of what I've just taken you through of a brand DNA and imagining a personal brand DNA and the overlap between a commercial or corporate brand DNA, The principles and the structure of a branding are exactly the same. Why do you exist as a person? What's your role on life? And I can encourage people to think of your role in a way of serving others. Beyond making money, what is it that you really do? What are your core beliefs personally that you really will die in a ditch for? And it's okay to create a barrier between black and white, because more often than not, it's the beliefs that join us together and separate us. And it's okay to hold and respect different beliefs. But, if you believe that, climate change is a nonsense, then sorry, you're probably not going to belong in my belief set, where I can witness it and see it for myself and believe it's something that we need to address for future generations, for example. So your promise, what is it that you're articulating? Was it to people, and your benefits and how you go about doing it is intricately woven into your personality. Now, it's much more relevant if you're a solopreneur or you're a small business owner and you're working with 2 to 5 to 10, even 20 people. Your personal influence and thinking preferences will shape almost directly what your commercial brand persona is as well. They're almost identical. There's huge overlap. If you're running a large organization that's got its own culture and personality, perhaps less so. You might influence aspects of it. But it's particularly relevant, and the people that are in the Lighthouse are typically small business owners and solopreneurs. And there's an enormous amount of overlap, and that should be celebrated and championed. That's what stands you apart. And I think increasingly in this era where AI is already kind of beating the human brain in the kind of the processing and thinking of information, the human side of who you are, and the emotional connections and the community and the direct conversations, things like this that we're having, is going to come more and more important. So it's going to be even more valuable that you find that fusion of your personal brand and your commercial brand.
That's interesting. The one thing that I always think about when I hear about personal branding and how a lot of these, the CEOs, the founders are kind of interlacing their personal brand into the actual corporate brand. What I wonder about doing that is that do you think you run the risk of, if they're so heavily woven into each other, founder and the brand, of course, that founder is, he's created that particular brand. But what happens if there's a worst case scenario where the brand founder, goes through something that's publicly facing, that's something that is, kind of something that, taints his personal image, something that, let's say he was convicted of a felony, or he, something really, really bad where his personal brand is tainted. Does he run the risk of I guess you could say, bringing the whole ship down with him when you get that heavily tied in, or is there a way to avoid that?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, sometimes they're creating huge oil tankers that, they could have left and died off the bridge, and the tanker's still steaming on and will do. I mean, let's talk real language here. I mean, it's happening in front of us now with Elon Musk and Tesla and others and things like that.
Very true. Exactly.
Where I don't know the man, and I must, do credit. I can't make any personal assessments, and I reserve judgment until I do know more about them. He's done many great things, but he's obviously upset lots of people as well. He's gone from being a champion of environmental green energy to having people here in Vancouver who've got little stickers saying, I bought my Tesla before Elon went crazy. Kind of.
Yeah, I've seen the same things here in Florida. I'm like, wow.
But again, that's. So has it brought the organization down? Has it built the reputation up? No. Potentially. Has it damaged stock share? We'll never actually quite know. We've had other people before. I mean, Richard Branson, who I have met with the Virgin, he's a blessing and a curse. Much more of a blessing because he's got such an amazing profile. He's a riskerous, adventurous, courageous, challenging conventional wisdom, head of Virgin, whose people kind of, use him as best as they can and controlled in a way as they can. He's been much more controlled and puppeted now than he ever was in the beginning days, because he would say radical kind of thoughts that would scare the bulk of shareholders around. But so, you want some of those kind of blessings in the old ad world in which I was in, the personalities of the heads of the agencies, Leo Burnett and David Ogilvy and Bill Bernbach, they had very distinctive thoughts of their own and built cultures of their own, and they were not afraid to kind of alienate people who didn't feel the same way, and there was mutual respect amongst them. Now I feel some of the culture that is out there at the moment is to conform to the norm and not say things that you do. And if you even feel very differently, you don't want to upset anyone, or fear of being cancelled, or saying all of those kind of things is knocking sharp edges off people, which I find is a bit of a shame,
I think at the end of the day, to kind of close that topic out, it's if the brand's if the brand's customer base really sees the value and what the particular brand provides, gets a tremendous amount of value in it, knows it's a solid product, solid services, even if something happens with the particular founder that's doesn't put the founder in a good light, and something traumatic happens, something like that paints a negative picture on it, I think a lot of times people can look past that and really just separate that particular founder, because we all know everyone is human and we all make mistakes, and they just are looking at that product themselves, because at the end of the day, the product and services is more than just that founder. It's a whole team, an army of people
well
that
said.
Make it up.
And there's always the kind of convenience, and not everybody's got the luxury to be able to stand up for the principles that as a principle is not a principle until it's cost you money is actually very, very true, and many of us don't have the luxury to kind of hold on to our high hobby horses and say, okay, I'm going to protest so and so because they don't share my beliefs.
For sure.
That said, the other side, it doesn't make it any better. When you're turning a blind eye to things that are definitely wrong, overfishing practices and pollution and unclean oceans and all of those kind of things, where actually collectively making small gestures in a big unified voice is probably the only way to create the change that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And these days people are more mindful of all these things, and so they're looking at what brands are doing for sure. Yeah. Now looking ahead, how do you see brand management overall just evolving in specifically the e-commerce space, and what roles are tools like your Chief Brand Officer Masterclass and then the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, how does that play into the future?
Oh, thank you. Well, again, I think increasingly, especially in the e-commerce world, there's probably a greater risk to jump to what I would call the convenient solutions that we're talking about. Yeah. You can now get what I would call red button, black button boxes that you can press that will promise for you, synthesized qualitative data from groups. You don't need to talk to any people anymore. You don't need to do group sales studies or anything else like that, because you can get the synthesized data, even though it's average to the norm. Fine. Done. We'll take that for you. We'll articulate your brand DNA. Thanks, Peter, for doing that, and everybody else who followed and created their own frameworks. There's a million different frameworks. I'm not saying, mine is better than the rest of the world. That's one of the big mistakes people make. I'd say to look around at the best, pick the best thing for you. That's what brand-centered management was all about. But you can get that for next to nothing. Yes. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought as where I was going with this, but where did you start out again?
Yeah, just I was looking to see how is all of this, we're looking ahead as far as the brand management is concerned. What role, I'm looking at what are the roles that your tools are going to be playing, the masterclass and the Lighthouse Brand Strategy.
Thank you. So what I was going to say, I was back on the red button of saying that the risk is the convenience and the low cost of racing to the bottom with these solutions that can provide not just the frameworks, but your whole brand strategy typed out for you in a second. And they'll go further than that. They'll interpret that into graphic designs for you. They'll give you, style guides, logos. You'll give a marketing communications plan. Do you want to cover that further? Do you want me to execute that into social media posts for you? Do you want me to give it to you into complete campaigns? The convenience and the race to the bottom on that is here already. And I think the e-commerce tech kind of people are even more prone to that vulnerability. And some of it, it's always been this way, good enough is good enough. And some of it is actually good. I'm not knocking it. I use tons of AI for my research and data, but I always put the human take on it as well. And the human power of creativity still, I think, is largely unmatched. What AI does and generates is volume, and in that digital way, it will spew all options out for you, but not necessarily that wonderful emotional connection or irrationality that humans can still bring in that community. So that is what I'm trying to bring with the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy. It focuses more on not what has changed, but what has not changed, and that will not change despite the advances of technology and where we're going with robotics and AI. It uses and embraces them in the way in which it's most valuable, but it brings that fused human input of insight and community. So you join a community of other solopreneurs and small business owners and strategists who are going through their own journey and defining their brand DNA or helping to do it for their clients in a human exchange way. And yes, we talk about the tools and the e-commerce platforms that are being used, and we share that as those advancements go on. The principles are there, and they're the same. So, and the CBO masterclass CBO is a chief brand officer, and the best organizations, to my mind, the CEO is also the chief brand officer, and by that I mean somebody who discovers, understands, articulates, and acts as a custodian or a guardian of the development of their brand. The brand being the central driving force that drives their organization forward. And that's why we call it the lighthouse. The lighthouse is a wonderful metaphor. Lighthouses are structures with purpose, built to last for centuries, and they're built on solid foundations of rock, those rocks being core beliefs and values that are unchanging despite the conditions. And but each with a beacon that says, this is what we stand for. This is why we do what we do. This is what we believe in. Do you believe in what we believe in? If so, kind of come to the light. I see. And you may or may not know it, but every lighthouse beacon in the world is unique. They have a different color, or they have a different number of beams. They have a different flashing pattern. Everyone is unique, so you know exactly where they stand, and they help lift the fog when it's foggy, as a good strategy and as a good kind of group does. So that's the Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, and I'm trying to make it affordable and accessible and above all actionable. So it's not preachy academic stuff. It's practical tools that I've used to help with brands like, Shangri-La Hotels, AIG, PepsiCo, Shell's, Coca-Cola's, big name brands, as well as small independent operations. So
that sounds great. Yeah, thank you for breaking that down. And those definitely seem like some truly useful and practical services that I know will be of incredible use to e-commerce brands today, for sure. Well, Peter, this has been an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed having you on, and definitely enlightened us a lot based on your experiences and all that you've witnessed and the things that you're being a part of right now. So this has been a great time. But lastly, before we do let you go, I always like to switch gears just so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we'd be interested to know.
Fun fact about myself. That's a good question. I guess what most people don't and wouldn't know about me at one level, and I'm kind of really cheating. I played professional football, soccer, at one level, a very low level.
Gotcha.
I put a claim to fame. I also trained in cricket and two sports like that. Which the Americans really do not understand at all. So that'll be irrelevant to anybody who's listening.
Gotcha.
But I found those, and I still play old guys soccer. Well, I'm kind of temporarily on hold,
Okay.
They're going to get through some health challenges, but
Gotcha.
it's people don't know that. But I found anybody who's played at a high level in sports. My son's a really good hockey player. There are disciplines of playing in a team sport where you are good, but you also really need to be just a cog in a wheel. And even if you can be an inspirational leader, you're not always preaching. You try and lead by example, but you're part of a team, and you're nothing with the rest of the team without the rest of the team. So there are many principles that apply from high level sports activities, and
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I can see how all of those principles in being in a team has helped you throughout your career. So I appreciate you sharing that. Lastly, before we do let you go, what would be the best way for our listeners and viewers to contact you if they want to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about brand DNA or anything under that sun?
Well, I don't know whether you've got my link in the book. Dim Sum Strategy is a really good starting point.
Sure.
The best place is my website, which is peterwilken.com. That's Wilken with an E and an N, not INS. And everything is there. You can access the kind of Lighthouse Brand Strategy Academy, and there's free resources and stuff in there, so you can find out from that. That's Peter Wilken, WILKEN.com. So thank you for asking.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll definitely be sure to have that link to that in our show notes as well as on the website, so people can get a hold of you from there. Well, Peter, it's been an awesome time speaking with you. We really appreciate you coming on the E-commerce Marketing Podcast.
Well, absolutely my pleasure, Arlen, and thank you so much for inviting me. And good luck. Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level, but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.